I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. Welcome to another episode of SAE Tomorrow Today, a show about emerging technology and trends, and we'll build it with leaders and innovators who make it all happen. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to be joined by Ali Javidan, CEO and founder of Range Energy. On today's episode, we'll explore the growth of electrified trailers and their journey from prototype to scalable commercial success. We hope you enjoy this episode. Ali, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
It's great to see you. A lot's changed since we talked. We've turned the calendar from 24 to 25. You're building Range Energy. You're cooking.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about this year?
This year, it's starting to build our trailers for customers, and we're hoping to start doing deliveries at the end of the year for our first customer units. We're deploying a bunch of pilots across the nation right now, primarily focused on refrigerated fleets because those are the fleets that need the most help right away, but also doing some pilots with dry vans as well.
This is great. So you're going to build the trailers, deliver the trailers. So you're not going to actually own the trailers. Your customers are going to own them then?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different ways. What we're doing is we're matching the same type of ownership and business model that the industry uses today. We're not really interested in kind of disrupting just because it seems good on paper. We really want to respect where the industry is and just try to slot ourselves into that. And so to that end, our system is meant to be a brand new piece a brand new system that's installed on whatever trailer you normally buy, or we can actually retrofit our electrification system onto your existing trailer fleets as well. So it's really meant to just kind of work as an add-on to whatever you have deployed or are getting deployed.
What does the Range Energy system unlock for your customers? Is it efficiency? Is it maintenance? What does it unlock for them?
Yeah, I think maybe zooming out a little bit for people that don't know exactly kind of what the Range Energy system may be. I've been in the automotive industry now for nearly 30 years. And actually, one of the first things I ever did in automotive was join the student chapter of the SAE. And I quickly became the president of the student chapter and ran the Formula SAE team. And that's kind of stuck with me for a very, very long time. And even from those days, it's always been about roadway efficiency and safety. And I've really kind of pulled through my career using that as one of the underlying kind of pieces that motivates me and drives me is how can we make our roadways more efficient and safer at the same time? Growing up, you're sitting in the backseat of your parents' car and you see this big rig next to you and you see these big wheels and you're just fascinated by the mechanism that's rolling. But then you kind of get bummed out when you see that black soot coming out of the tailpipe. And so carrying that all the way to where I'm at now, nearly 20 years in developing electric vehicles alone, my thought was, well, how can we be empathetic to the existing fleet of drivers and fleet managers, existing population of drivers and fleets, and bring electrification and bring efficiency and safety to these folks. And so the concept that we have, or the idea, it's not a concept anymore, there are trailers on the road now, is we electrify a trailer by adding an energy module, which is basically a battery box that clips in underneath the outside of the trailer. And then a drive module that basically replaces one of the passive axles in the back of the trailer with an active axle. And just to kind of contextualize, we're talking about big rigs, 18-wheelers that are on the road today. The front half is the tractor or the truck. The back half is the trailer, and we're really focused on the trailer. And the way our system works is that we use first-order principles to sense and measure how hard the truck is pulling on that trailer. And we then deploy drive algorithms and regen algorithms to make the trailer feel absolutely weightless to whatever is towing it. And this is done without a CAN signal or any kind of data communication or any type of requirement from the towing vehicle. And what that allows us to do is hybridize your old diesel Peterbilt or a brand new Freightliner Cascadia, and then also extend the range of all the new electric stuff that's out there. And so that's the kind of high level concept here. And the net benefit is that we see as much as 70% gains in fuel economy, and that's 7-0. These are numbers that have never been possible before. And over 70% reduction in harmful emissions out of the tailpipes. And so these are really, really big game-changing numbers, and the fleets are starting to pay attention to the impact that we can have, not only to the environment, and drivability, but also to their bottom line.
It's a tremendous impact. Is that because your technology allows the trailer, for all practical purposes, to become weightless, where there's not as much stress on the tractor?
That's right. That's exactly the idea here, is that what if we made the trailer feel weightless to the tractor? But, if you've ever driven a truck and a trailer and you're bobtailing, you know that that's actually not bobtailing. If you're driving an empty trailer, the empty trailer is actually, in some cases, more scary than a full trailer, because it's kind of bouncing around and you have limited control of the braking situation. But what we do is we actually assist the entire system and bring a new layer of safety. We can regen a lot more from that axle in the rear trailer, so that we're actually now saving the brakes on the entire system, increasing the brake duty cycle by about 5x, because we're regenning from the trailer now. We are able to accelerate through intersections and, for example, fill torque in your semi-automated transmission, extending the life of that semi-automated transmission, bringing the shift times from, let's say, 3/4 of a second or a second down to 1/4 of a second or 1/10 of a second, so that driving experience is dramatically better. Right now, we're actually testing threshold braking and stability control and jackknifing on the ice up in northern Michigan. And so these are all new benefits that are only available by putting a full powered e-axle in the trailer with the intelligent control system that we've developed.
Wow. How about I spent a lot of time out west, and you see the runaway truck thing on the side of the highways.
Yeah.
Can your system help prevent that? And can it also shorten the braking distance potentially?
Yeah. So, the Grapevine, which is this run on I-5, Interstate 5 in Southern California. It's about 12% grade on both sides, and then 6% grade on both sides. And we were going up that mountain at mostly loaded at 55 miles an hour, 60% throttle. And on the way down, we didn't even touch the brakes. We used regen braking all the way down. And at the bottom of the hill, the brakes were cold, and we put over 10 kilowatt hours back into the battery pack and just regen. And how it works is really, really cool. And if you've ever driven a truck and a trailer, you're always hovering over the brakes. You're kind of pumping sometimes. You don't want to overheat anything. And just for context, I've been driving trucks and trailers since I was 14 years old. I grew up around farms. So this is where how does this guy know about trucks and trailers? I've been doing this for a long time. So what we do is we let the driver either use the exhaust brake, or the engine brake, or the friction brakes to set your speed. And let's say you set to 55 miles an hour. And then the regen axle in the trailer, the drive axle in the trailer becomes a regen axle, and it holds the entire system at bay using the trailer. So now you don't have this big weight pushing you down a mountain. And if you don't get enough braking force from your tractor, that thing comes around, and that's where jackknifing comes in. Well, we fix all of that by braking from the place where the jackknifing originates. We've stabilized the system using the regen there. So yeah, that we absolutely use regen.
Then do you see your biggest demand coming from the western part of the United States, just based on the terrain as compared to the East Coast, where it tends to be flatter?
That's really perceptive. We definitely are much more efficient when we go over mountains, because we can help up the hill and we can reclaim down the hill and all of that stuff. But we're finding that we're kind of seeing adoption across the board, especially on the refrigerated fleets, because this is really the only system that has enough onboard power and energy generation to be able to sustain a reefer for real. Like using the e-axle on the trailer, you can actually use that as a generator to generate energy to put into the battery pack to sustain your reefer on full electric. And so now our fleets are finding that this is really the only sustainable full electric solution for their refrigerated units. And with our partner Thermo King, we're starting to develop these systems that are really meant to be fully electric off the grid. And our system, in fact, for charging, when you pull your trailer up to the loading dock and you would hook the shore power up to the reefer unit, now you just hook that up to our battery box that's next to the connectors next to the reefer connector. And then our battery box is what powers the reefer and keeps that thing on, or pulls the temperature down, or whatever you need from the refrigeration unit. And at the same time, it's charging our battery. So we can actually hold temperatures and charge overnight using existing power at a loading dock while the driver's at home resting. And that's one of those things where it kind of doesn't matter where you're at. all of the fleets want a tool that's like this.
You're increasing efficiency, reducing carbon. From an infrastructure perspective, your customers or your customers' customers, is the charging infrastructure there in the bays, or is that something that has to be built out to really see this technology scale?
I think there's a little bit of both of that. So today we can absolutely charge using the shore power that's at the loading dock now at the bay, and a lot of the new buildings are being built with the new shore power standards, and we can leverage all of that. We have the connector and the interface for that. Now, that being said, if you are a fleet that has megawatt charging infrastructure and you're like, hey, I have these like 600 kilowatt DC fast chargers, I want to be able to charge your trailer in 15 minutes or in half an hour, then absolutely, yes, you can DC fast charge our system as well. But we're finding that a lot of our first customers don't have that money to make that investment or are not ready to make that investment quite yet. And so we've built a system that is as flexible as possible. Our first deployment, which was with a bottler in Southern California, we actually used the employee EV chargers, just kind of ran them over the fence from the parking lot into the yard and charged our trailers overnight using the employee charging.
So you stepped into chargers, and this is SAE, so I have to ask, because there's the J plug debate versus the NACS debate, and everybody's going NACS on the consumer side.
Yep.
Are you going to have to add a NACS adapter at some point if that trend continues to hold?
The cool thing for us is that fleets are generally more predictable than consumers, and fleet behavior is generally much more predictable than consumer behavior. And so we work with each of the fleets to understand what the connector is that they want to use or what their charging infrastructure looks like. And for us, it's really just a connectorized thing. And because these folks are doing the same exact thing over and over again in their operations, we can really just change that charging connector whip. We don't need adapters. We don't want to confuse the customer, right? Like a lot of these folks, they're not going to show up with a Tesla charger at one end and a of their own building, their own facility, a Tesla charger on one side and a SAE charger on the other side. And they're usually going to have the same thing on both sides. Now, that being said, 100% absolutely yes. It's the same kind of automotive and truck scale connectorization. So we can go back and forth. That's one of the beauties of running a 300 kilowatt hour battery pack rather than a 600 or 800 kilowatt hour battery pack, is that we can actually use a lot of this automotive scale hardware. Obviously, it's commercialized and hardened for the industrial use, but a lot of the underlying foundational technology and physics has already been solved for automotive scale work.
Is that where your background in prototyping from Tesla, Zoox, and Google comes into play, since you've built and prototyped a lot of various different form factors?
Yeah, I mean, I've done even before my time at Tesla, when we were prototyping, it was really about, building a prototype that demonstrated the end use, but also maintained its flexibility. Because when, the first Model S originally had the Roadster connector in it. And if you remember, the Tesla Roadster connector had this big like billet aluminum barrel that had to like go in and then you twisted it and had like a finger thing and like all of that. So the first Model S Mule that we built had the Roadster connector in it. And then the next one had what we conceptualized could be a new standard, which was the NACS. And that was in 2009 that we had the first version of that connector. And we've used all of the different connector standards from across the world. I've done prototyping with these vehicles, everything from Volkswagen. Volkswagen still uses I forgot what the other connector was. They've used that for a long time. And so, yeah, I've used all of these different connectors. At the end of the day, because there's so much out there and because there's so much churn between what, the SAE says that it should be, which is kind of like I would almost say a conglomeration, or it's almost kind of like a grouping of what all of the OEMs want together, and a group of very smart engineers saying, okay, this is, forgive the wording, but the least common denominator that solves everybody's problem. Where Tesla takes a different approach, where it's just like, hey, we're going to go aggressive. We know this is what can be done. I mean, in fact, there was some tension between our team at Tesla, and the SAE group when the 1772 standard was coming out, because we were saying, hey, you can pump more current, you can do more with this connector. Let's raise the standards so that we can actually look at DC fast charging at the rates that we wanted and all of this stuff. And that was kind of what induced that Tesla connector to come out, was because we wanted to do more. And so long story short, I understand that we can't predict the future. And I understand that fleets, especially fleets, are going to choose their own path. And we can't prescribe that for them. We can help, absolutely. We can advise, but we can't prescribe this for them. And so it just comes down to a connector change for us.
That makes it flexible.
Yeah.
Because how long on average, is there any data that a trailer is in a fleet? Is there data that you can point to for the average length of a trailer is in a fleet?
Yeah, I believe the number that I have is anywhere between 8 and 12 years. So a fleet like, let's say, a Walmart or an Amazon, and this is all me, my product team knows this back and forth, and I'm just kind of like regurgitating a few words that I've heard in meetings. So everybody that's really in this industry, in that part of that industry, will slap me in the hands. But anywhere between 8 and 10 years, or 8 and 12 years. So a fleet like Walmart or Amazon that has a really, really high performing fleet, they'll usually sell their trailers around 8 years. But some of the smaller fleets or folks like JB Hunt, you'll see 10, 12-year-old trailers on their yard. It really, really depends. And I may be off here a little bit, but that's kind of the scale that we're seeing. It's usually about a 10-year turnaround on trailers.
How do you see range when you build your trailer? It goes into commercial use. Let's say day one. What type of time frame are you expecting it to be out in the field for? It comes back, gets refreshed or retrofitted.
We expect that our energy module and our drive modules will last easily the life of the box itself or the trailer itself. If we look at our battery chemistry and the charge behaviors, we can easily last over that 10-year threshold with the number of charge cycles that we have. I think there's still some questions to be had around the longevity of the e-axles. But again, this is not, e-axles are not a new thing to the world, and big heavy duty axles from these suppliers that we're going to be providing are definitely not new. Our e-axle comes from one of the biggest suppliers in the world. And so these things are hardened and tested. So we are scaling and developing the system to last the typical life of a trailer, which is this kind of 8 to 10 years. And we predict that it could go longer than that.
The interesting thing about range is you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're saying, okay, here's the historic norms in the industry. Let's build a product to fit in with the industry norms. Why did you make that decision? Because you have competitors to say, oh, guess what? We're going to blow the whole thing up and we're going to do it our way. And you're saying, no, you have a system. We're going to fit into your system. We're just going to optimize it.
Yeah, I think that really comes from like that thing that I said before, is that I've been towing things around since I was 14 years old. I grew up, in and around farms and mechanic shops. I got my ASE master certification before I got my engineering degree. And I've been working around, the trucks and trailers for a very, very long time. And so for me, I think having a certain level of empathy for the folks that are out there on the ground, working on these tools, building them, creating them, maintaining them, fixing them when they get flipped over on the side of the highway, all of those things, I think, is really what builds, a unique perspective. I was a civil engineer before I was a mechanical engineer. And I worked at Caltrans, California Department of Transportation, as a transportation engineer, working on roadway and bridge design. And so I understand from kind of both directions here the impact that a lot of these trucks and trailers have on our roadways. But I also understand the fact that these fleets are counting pennies and seconds. There's not margins in this. Everybody is just trying to make it to their next job or to their next booking, right? And so, and safety is a huge thing. Like, we take for granted that this is a human being with a family that's sitting in this truck every single day. And so these are all really, really important insights that we started this company with. We're not layering that stuff in. And I think that's really what allows us to step into the fleets with open arms. One of the first things we do is we go into the fleet maintenance shop and have a look at the tools that they have, to make sure that what we're developing in our energy module or in our drive module is compatible with their current toolkits and their current forklift and the torque tools that they use and all of that stuff. We want to make sure that it all just works when it shows up, because at the end of the day, if the fleet mechanics don't like it, if the drivers don't like it, it's not going to get used, no matter how much the finance people say you have to use it.
Yeah, because then everybody hides from the finance guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes the other way around too. I can't build a system that's like super cool and everybody loves to use it and it's got all these bells and whistles, but the finance guy's like, yeah, this is too expensive. This will never work. So we have to meet. I won't even say in the middle. We've built a system that kind of answers both questions.
Would have you been able to build range if you didn't have the diverse background from the experience that you've had throughout your life?
Possibly. I mean, other people are doing it with like if we think about some of the other folks that are trying to build powered trailers or electrified trailers. I think the reason that we are able to be so effective and have so much amazing, like on my other screen that I can't show you, I'm looking at our current customer list and I'm like, holy crap, these are some mega fleets. These are amazing customers. And the reason that we have this attention is because of those intangibles of like when I step in, even something as simple as like, oh, I know how to back up a truck and trailer. I can get it here for you if you want. Or I know how to speak the language of the mechanics. And those things really like it's anybody can do this if they try hard enough, but will they be as fast, as effective, or build a product that is as good as what I believe we're building? I don't think so.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time, a lot of friends that both in the autonomous trucking side and the traditional trucking side, and there's a whole different language that if you don't understand, you don't understand that, but you understand that you're able to build that. One of the things a lot of my friends in traditional trucking talk all the time about is weight. And from your civil engineering, you know that the weight on the roads. What type of weight is range adding to a trailer? Is it significant, or is it pretty minuscule when you look at the overall weight of a trailer?
Yeah, our system weighs about 5,000 pounds. That includes the battery pack and the drive module or the e-axle. That's the whole system all in. And if we think about over 70% of the loads on the road are cubed out. They run out of volume before they run out of mass allowance. That being said, we do see a future with a better integrated system, lighter components, so that we can kind of minimize that mass penalty. But I also do believe that we bring a added layer of safety benefit to the entire system as well. And so if we think about, let's say, 80,000 pounds or 82,000 pounds is the kind of legal roadway limit right now for a standard truck and trailer. And we bump that up just by a little bit. We're not asking for a 20,000 pound allowance. In fact, eventually I want to ask for no allowance and just build an integrated system with trailer OEMs that is designed for this and lightweight. But that's, I think, kind of far out into the future. Long story short, the benefits that you get from our system far outweigh the small percentage of loads that can't be addressed because now we're, basically pulling two pallets out. And one of our beverage bottlers that we use, that's one of our customers, has to pull two pallets out to put our system in. That's two pallets of drinks for them. But the fuel economy, the drivability, and the efficiency is so much better that it's worth that extra trip that's one extra trip every 10 loads is kind of what it turns out to be. It's worth that extra trip to get the efficiency that you get across the entire system.
That and I want to hit on another point. I'm assuming from that bottler, I'm assuming the drivers must be happier.
Oh my God.
Is that a fair statement where the drivers like driving it?
Yeah. We're going to start releasing some customer testimonial videos here in the next month or two. And you'll see it's all about the drivers. For me, it comes down to really about the effectiveness of our system when the driver is driving it. Because if the driver can feel this sense of confidence when they're driving, one of the things that I learned as a young race engineer, as I was building race cars before all of this, as a young race engineer, was that my job was to make the driver as confident in the driver's seat as possible. The rest of the stuff will come. The driver will tell you how to get more grip out of it and all of this stuff, but you need to make that driver as confident as possible. And coming from a truck and trailer driving perspective, that's everything. When you're towing a big load, you're so scared all the time, no matter how many miles you have. It's anxiety inducing. You see a family in a minivan next to you. It just like raises every stake that you have. Like, it doesn't matter who you are in that driver's seat. You feel it. You really, really feel it. But if you feel like you have control of that 60, 70,000 pound box that's behind you, then all of a sudden you have this confidence. And that with that confidence comes less fatigue, it comes more alertness, and comes a much happier fleet and driver group. And I think that in itself, in addition to all of our safety benefits, is going to help increase the safety and our efficiency of our drivers.
I fully agree with that. Do the drivers have to go through a special training to drive with your electrified trailers, or is it just plug and play?
Just plug, we call it hook up and go. Hook up and go. There's 3 signal lights on the back. There's nothing that you need to do. We basically can tell if you're changing lanes, going up a hill, going through an intersection. We have all of these different modes that we can all these different algorithms that we pull from depending on the state of the system. And really the interface for the driver is just get in and go. And all of a sudden the trailer just like you just have unbelievable acceleration. You have unbelievable braking. We're looking at over double-digit improvements in brake performance as far as percentage goes. This is like unheard of. Going from drum brakes to ABS with disc brakes is like 5, 6, maybe 7% at the most. We're more than that with just this trailer system. And so, it's actually not 7%, it's more like 3 to 5% going from drums to discs. We're over doubling that. And so it's, the numbers are just like really, really staggering.
Based on the economic data, the sustainability data, the safety data, do you see electrified trailers in the future becoming the de facto standard for all trailers going forward?
I sure hope so. I really do think that it, as a society, and this is me being biased, but I think we would be much more effective at electrifying all the trailers on the road than we would be at electrifying all the tractors on the road. I think we have a huge infrastructure, a large install base of tractors that are still working, that still have a lot of life left, that people know how to use and maintain. We have, I don't know how many billions of dollars in parts inventory and infrastructure built to maintain and run these tractors. These tractors are literally the lifeblood of this country. And for us to assume that we're just going to displace them all of a sudden with something that's less reliable and that nobody knows how to use or charge. I love this industry more than almost any other industry in the world, but I will say that we're fooling ourselves if we think we can just flip a switch. And so for me, I think the best opportunity that we have to flip that switch, or the quickest way that we can decarbonize our roadways, is to electrify these trailers. Because the way that we've developed the system, we can retrofit all the existing 3 million trailers on the road. These boxes, the energy module and drive modules are meant to just clip right in using the existing tools that you have, using the existing, the bogies still work, the slider still works back and forth. All of that stuff still works. And so our concept here is that, if we start to demonstrate the safety benefits and we start to demonstrate the ease of integration of our system into any trailer, any Class 8 trailer that's on the road, then we will start to see folks like NHTSA and DOT pay attention to different forms of regulation around this, around making some form of this mandatory. I don't want to venture out to say that this should be mandatory, because it is a costly system. It's not free. There are incentives and there will continue to be incentives that will help make this thing affordable. And it is not. I will also say that it's not as expensive as some of the prices of the e-semis and the really, really expensive stuff out there. This is much, much more reasonable and has a reasonable payoff period. But definitely the safety benefits will demonstrate how important this could be. And I'm hopeful that some form of this becomes mandatory on the roadways, even if it's not me that's building it, because the safety part's huge.
To get there, realistically, you just need a safety paper release from DOT with guidance. And then that starts that whole process where there's federal data to back up the point. You're right. You're not going to swap out the trailers. Most of them are small fleets, 3, 4 trailers, mom and pops, and they can't afford it. They're not going to swap them out. But if the trailers retrofitting with incentives, they could do that. How long does it take to do a retrofit? And then would you have to go out and hire thousands of engineers, or would you partner with a Ryder or a Penske to upfit them in the future as you really scale and or a Rush, for a matter of fact, and you get really, really big?
Yeah. So it's more of the latter. So we have a dealer group and a service network that we are working with. We have kind of this like national dealer council that we've put together. And these are, I don't know if I can announce the names of any of these folks. I think one example is Doggett. The Doggett Group is part of our dealer council. And so what we're developing is a system that can be shipped to any of these service and maintenance shops around the country. Goodyear is another example. And any of the mechanics should be able to install this system. This is a standard bogie change. So it's the rear suspension tandem removes and installs the same exact way as it did before. The battery box, the energy module, essentially it's just a forklift, fork it up, clip it into the frame rails using normal hand and power tools and torque tools, and connect all the cables and go. Everything is meant to be installed, serviced, and maintained by existing technicians. Now, obviously, there's some training that needs to be had around high voltage cable hygiene and etiquette, and some of the wiring interconnects that a lot of these yards may not be used to doing. But we're really following this kind of Thermo King style refrigerated model where you call your dealer, you say, I want this trailer, I want this refrigeration unit on it, and I want this powered system on it from Range. And then the dealer will help coordinate everything, and then you take delivery of your trailer. That's just one example. But we are not painting ourselves into a corner by building, a nationwide Range network of service stations. And now you have to go to a Range place to get this done or that done. We use standard wheel ends even on our axles. So the parts come from your normal parts people, like the same brakes that you use currently. All of the stuff is as standardized and as normal as possible. And anything that's not, we're building a very robust parts and inventory and distribution network so that the customers can get their parts in many cases as quickly as possible. We're trying to minimize downtime. And I don't want to jinx us, but so far we have run, I think, almost 8-9 pilots now, big pilots with big names, and we've had zero downtime on all of these pilots, including running out of charge and our system faulting and all of that stuff. Zero downtime.
You and I both know downtime's the biggest Achilles heel in this industry.
Yep.
That's the dirty word. Nope, can't talk about that. Well, you want to hear uptime, uptime, uptime. This is a hypothetical. Let's say there's a mandate, there's incentives, and tomorrow we're going to start flipping all the trailers to electrified trailers. Is the supply chain for the battery and all the components, is that stable enough to do that, or does that still have to be worked through?
The supply chain for the batteries and all of the different components are absolutely, mature, stable, and we have the volumes that we can get. I think right now the e-axle industry, everybody's scrambling to get e-axles, and e-axles are a relatively new thing to the world. The foundational axles themselves, the housings, the castings, the wheel ends, that's all normal stuff. But the e-axle itself, whether it comes from, I don't want to call out any suppliers, let's say Cummins Accelera, ZF, Allison, all of these folks are making e-axles, and they've only been making e-axles for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And as a result, the production ramp is relatively low. And now that we have these some of these e-semis and stuff kind of falling back, like the Nikolas and of the world kind of falling back, all of the e-axle suppliers have kind of reformulated their projections and their production ramps. So if we were to say, yes, you have all the funding in the world, you have a factory and you have customers that want 50,000 trailers a year, go make them. We could pretty much supply everything almost right away. And then the e-axles would be the kind of the lag to get going. But that's not to say that the industry is immature. The products are incredibly robust and high quality. They're already being used and deployed on our roadways as we speak. It's just that there's not 50 people making these e-axles yet with huge production capacity that they can turn on and off like brakes or even at this point, battery packs. So I would say that we will have a production ramp. We will be at full capacity on our production ramp, or full demand on our production ramp for several years out. And we expect to be at a full kind of production cadence within just a few years of starting production.
There's a clear path to scale at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah. I think that's super important for us because we currently are telling customers that we cannot supply, if basically we have these customers with large fleets, 30,000 trailers or more. coming and saying, you know what, if this really works, we're going to want all of them. We're going to want as many as you can build us. And so, and now we're proving that it really works. That when I say zero up downtime, this is a trailer at the end of the day. Even if the whole system decides to take a break, it's still a trailer. You can tow it home, just like you're not losing your load. And so this is a huge opportunity for a lot of these fleets. And so we're really, really focused on building a very, very robust product, a very high quality product, so that the product that we sell in year one is still relevant and useful and still provides big benefits 10 years from now. That's very important for us. It kind of doesn't matter where the supply chain is at this point. We know that we're going to be able to meet as much of the customer demand as we can and continue to scale with really, really good quality products. We're not building a startup on other people's startup hardware here. This is really building on supply chain that everybody knows. The boxes of the bearings and the all of those pieces are going to be normal pieces that you've seen before.
I would say the way that you built Range, you built Range to scale. Ali, what's the future of Range Energy? Where are you taking this thing?
That's a good question. Right now, I'm laser focused on getting Class 8 trailers on the road. I think that is a huge slice of the pie here for decarbonization of our commercial trucking industry. I do see this technology kind of working its way through anything that's towed, whether it's we see elements of this technology that could be used in rail. We can use the elements of this technology even in marine. And so there's a lot of this kind of technology that can trickle out. I mean, imagine the future. Yamaha is one of our biggest investors. They have 3 pontoon boat companies, and they're one of the biggest outboard suppliers in the world. And they supply trailers with all of these boats that they supply. So imagine an electrified trailer for your electrified boat that you could DC fast charge at the shore while you're having hot dogs. So there's a bunch of different new opportunities here that we can kind of unlock. But right now, we're really focused on this roadway safety and efficiency element, and that big piece for that is the Class 8 trucking world.
Well, think about the safety on those Yamahas on the trailer, because you have an individual, with all due respect, is not a certified Class 8 driver. They don't have a CDL. Oh, let's go buy a toy. And it's like, uh-oh, what's this drift from behind?
That's right. And it gets even worse when you start seeing like these Toyota 4Runners towing 6,000 pound cardboard boxes that they call RVs, right? And it becomes a real problem. Improperly loaded, the driver doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know how to get themselves out of a fishtail. Like any of that stuff. So we definitely, like, Grayson, have you been here before? I can't remember if you came and visited. So we have a couple of smaller bumper pull trailers that we've put our power system onto with our control system. And you can actually grab the end of the kingpin on this 5,000 pound flatbed utility trailer and just move it around the yard like it's on an air hockey table. Because our system, again, is trying to make the trailer feel weightless no matter what. If it's a human pulling it or a tractor pulling it, we don't care. We don't need a data connection. We just use physics.
And that's the common denominator. Electrification's changing the game. It's increasing safety and increasing efficiency. Ali, as we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, super cool to know that you are an SAE Formula member. What would you like our listeners to take away with them today?
For me, it's continuing to see where everybody's paying. I mean, the whole premise here at Range was that everybody was looking at electrifying the primary mover. And my thought was, well, let's step back and see what people are missing. And it was the same box being towed behind every one of those fancy primary movers. No matter what the future looked like, it was a dumb box. And so look for those obvious things that kind of blend into the background. And I think especially if you're a young engineer like I was, don't look at the shiny stuff. Look at the dull stuff that needs to be shined up, that nobody's paying attention to. And that's where the opportunity lies. And no matter what, always take the hard path. I think if you're given a couple of choices here as an engineer or as a creator or as a maker, choose the harder path, because you'll learn so much more failing in the hard path than you would succeeding in the easy path.
I love that line, and I would take it one step further. Go build the future. Try and build something that's difficult. Just go build, go learn. Look Ali as an example. He built the future of trailers. That's what he's building at Range Energy. Today is tomorrow. Tomorrow's today. The future is Range Energy. Ali, thank you so much for coming on SAE Tomorrow Today.
Thank you so much. It was great to see you.
Thank you for listening to SAE Tomorrow Today. Be sure to join us next week as we explore how data, secure digital infrastructure, and a growing EV charging network are shaping the future of electric vehicles.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.